Good afternoon and Happy New Year, GovCon HR friends. Welcome to the start of the third year, hard to believe, gentlemen, of the GovCon HR Round-Up podcast. It's great to be back with everybody. Hope everybody had a wonderful holidays. Welcome to any first-time listeners. My name is Joe Young with GovCon Pay. I'm going to kick off a little different today as we normally do. We got a little announcement with GovCon Pay. I know we have some clients and partners that enjoy the podcast with us. Since we were together last November, I'm excited to share that GovCon Pay, our software partner that many of us know, iSolved, that we work with, we entered into a transaction to be acquired by iSolved here in the end of the year. The exciting thing is they're very excited about the work we're doing with the government contracting space, and you will see going forward us listed as a division of iSolved, which now brings us a lot of new resources and tools just to support our clients in the community. So we're very excited about that.
Congratulations on that. Yep.
Thank you, gentlemen. So again, as always, we are coming to you live from the studios here of BLC Digital Strategies in Tysons Corner, Virginia, a subsidiary here of Berenzweig and Leonard, and under the direction of our partner producer, Mr. Todd Castleberry. Before we jump into today's topic, I always want to recognize our sponsor, our great friends from Berkshire Associates. For those of you who aren't familiar, Berkshire are HR compliance experts with over 50 years of experience in providing compliance services and technology for organizations looking to build their ideal workforce through compliant non-discrimination services, workforce analytics, and pay equity expertise. So always a special welcome to any clients of Berkshire that are joining us today. As we said, the government's never at a loss for giving us new and timely topics for us to talk about. Before we jump into that, my fearless host here, Seth Declan of Berenzweig and Leonard, and Declan Leonard. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves again?
Hi, good afternoon. Seth Berenzweig, co-managing partner here at Berenzweig Leonard. We're trying to comfort Joe about the Eagles, so I know, we're trying to. Sorry about that, but
we're going to have a new offensive coordinator here just in hours, probably.
Hold it, keep the faith.
Thank you. Yes.
And I'm Declan Leonard. I'm also managing partner here at Berenzweig Leonard, and I head up the employment law practice.
Well, gentlemen, it's not quite as exciting. This time last year, if you remember, it was 2 days after the inauguration.
Yeah.
Executive orders started to come out. Our topics were changing as I drove over. Mm-hmm. So it was a very exciting January edition last year.
Yeah, exciting is one way to say it.
Exciting. We're going to say exciting. I think most of us in the government contracting space welcome 2026 with open arms. But with that said, there's definitely a segment of this industry, specifically our folks in the 8A program, who had continuing excitement through the holiday season, and that's really going to be the topic today. Is really the ongoing program enforcement actions that are being taken by the SBA and the audits and the information recently came out in December. So Declan, why don't you start us off? I mean, literally, there's a lot of attention being paid to these SBA crackdown on 8As. What exactly is going on, and why is it important for our audience to be aware of this, if they're not already heads down in it?
Exactly. So there should be a lot of attention paid to this. On December 5th, you wished everybody a happy holidays, of course, for 8A government contractors. It all came with the prospect of also having to comply with these letters, and we'll talk about those. On December 5th, the SBA issued letters to all 4,300 approximately federal contractors that are part of the 8A preferential program. So this was not a random selection. This was not just some people got them, some people didn't get them. This was intended to go to all those that are currently in the 8A program. And it was a letter requesting basically, show us all your books, show us all your financial records, show us all your employment records. We need you to upload those. Originally, they gave a very generous timeline of a couple days after the New Year's, January 5th. They've since extended that to January 19th, which is we're taping this on Thursday before the 19th. The 15th today. So they really just have a couple of business days, and it's actually due on a federal holiday too, which is very strange to me that was the date that they would pick. But anyways, this is a further reflection of the SBA's view that these programs, these preferential programs that favor minorities and disadvantaged and give them preference in the contracting space, that it is actually fraught with fraud, rampant abuse. In fact, the SBA head, Kelly Loeffler, when she announced this, she said it results from our specific findings of rampant fraud and increasingly egregious instances of abuse. And so this is not business as usual for the SBA. This is not coming from your friendly representative at the SBA. This is coming directly from the Office of General Counsel's office. So people have called it an audit. I think it's an enforcement action. I mean, I think that's what they're looking for. They're looking to uncover stuff. This is not just a paper pushing thing. They're looking to uncover stuff.
Yeah, my good friend Rob Wong, who's a former associate administrator of the Office of Government Contract, the business of the SBA, who's been out on social media. I mean, really classified this. This is a seismic shift. This is unlike anything we have seen before, and everybody needs to take a sense of urgency and seriousness with this. At a level that maybe they've never really seen before inside the SBA.
Very much so.
Yeah, definitely. And just to talk about the elements of how do you comply, as Declan noted, the deadline, which is a supposedly extended deadline, is literally coming on Monday. And at that time, by Monday, you all have to upload a volume of documents across the financial board for the past 3 years. You have to provide bank statements, financial statements, general ledgers, contracts, subcontracts, and HR-related records. And you can imagine the stress that's going to be on that filing system online on Monday, which is a federal holiday. So unfortunately, it's not like there's going to be anybody there at the SBA to be taking your call if you have a problem with that. So I wouldn't wait until Monday. I would file it within the next day or two, if at all possible. I think it's also relevant for just a brief moment to look at this within the lens of what we're dealing with right now from a political standpoint. Waste, fraud, and abuse has been a very hot topic. The government's feeling a lot of pressure on that. There are a lot of investigations that are going on in different parts of the country regarding different elements of waste, fraud, and abuse. The administration's feeling it. They're going to take this seriously. Office of General Counsel is going to take this seriously. This is not an administrative action. It's an enforcement action. So this is something that's going to move very hot and very fast.
And even, Seth, just to pick up on one thing, so they're asking for the last 3, they call it closed fiscal years. And what's interesting about that is they issued the letters on December 5th. And so if you are a calendar year company, you would look and say 2022, 2023, 2024. But you're responding to it in January of 26.
Right.
And so in some respects, there's even that confusion because technically when you're responding, 25 has already closed as a fiscal year.
Right.
If you are a non-calendar fiscal year, you've got to then do that own math and figure out, okay, if I close my books in the summer, then you're really going halfway through 2025. So again, once again, they put very aggressive enforcement action. But a lot of times they sort of don't follow through quite in the details, and it creates a lot of confusion for already busy and overtaxed contractors.
And it may end up just going into at least a little bit of a black hole because while the volume of incoming information at SBA is dramatically going up, the staffing across the agencies in Washington have been going down. So it's just going to be a hurry up and wait and see situation on this thing that's moving pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And what about the situation of you graduated from the 8A program in 2025? This comes out. Does this apply to you?
Today, no. If it applies to those that are currently in the program. If you have graduated, it does not apply to you. So there's just 2 quick things to note there. If you are in the program and you did not receive the notice, don't say, oh, that was a close one. I guess I don't have to comply. You're going to comply. Yeah. So just because you didn't get the letter doesn't mean that you're subject to the deadline. I would just go ahead and just check in, unfortunately. With regards to those that have recently graduated, it means that you're not worrying about it today, but stand by, because the general guidance from the agency has been that they want to look at it in the long term over a window of approximately 15 years. Yep. So they may end up having to deal with this sometime in the near future.
I think this is step 1, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this is the GovCon HR Round-Up podcast. Obviously, we hear audits, we think financial. But, why is it so important for HR to be involved in us having this conversation on the podcast today?
Yeah, no, it's absolutely critical, and I'll explain why. First off, let's think about what kinds of records are they asking for? This is not high level, hey, send us your compilation of financials. They're asking not only for your financials, but they want the backup to your financials. They want bank statements. They want proof of owner distributions. They want general ledgers. I mean, this is the type of accounting records that provides a ton of detail. So that's important. But I understand HR doesn't necessarily work on that aspect of it. But what they are looking for is detailed employee records, because you've got to think about, what are they really worried about here? What are they really thinking about? What they think is that 8As are being used by non-8As, larger companies perhaps that already graduated from the program, in order for those larger companies to continue to get a piece of the pie. And so this is where HR comes into play, because these employment records are going to show, they're going to show what employees of the 8A are connected to what specific contracts, and whether or not they have truly engaged in the appropriate levels of work share that are required to be in the 8A program. They're going to look at joint ventures. They're going to look at teaming agreements. All of this stuff, HR always has a hand in, because the level of control over employees is within HR's purview, and that also goes directly to the type of fraud that they're wanting to uncover.
Yeah, it's a measuring stick for more waste, fraud, and abuse allegations by the government. And if they see that you don't have the requisite allocation of hours, of work, of personnel, that the sauce of that gets baked into the employment record. So HR is going to be at the pointy end of the stick. One of the things that may also be interesting as this unfolds is that there could be a variety of incoming inquiries, calls, follow-ups by the government. And I think the company needs to figure out a way to speak through one voice. So just like if you get a call from OIG, or if you get a call from an agent from the FBI, the company needs to speak through one voice, and they need to think about how to be able to channel those calls, because they're going to be looking for any gaps, inconsistencies, and that's going to part of what makes this so dangerous, because even if you put everything in at the right time, is if there's any inconsistency in the records, it could also raise a red flag.
Yeah, one of the questions that came out as part of this process was, some of the companies were saying, okay, when I'm providing my employee records, is it just for those employees that are directly connected to 8A contracts? What if I have other contracts? Because 8As have sometimes open contracts in addition to 8A contracts. And the answer back from SBA in their frequent asked questions was, no, absolutely, you got to provide all employee records, whether they're connected to an 8A contract or not. So that alone, sort of broadens it. The other thing I'd point out for purposes of HR and being aware, another thing they're looking at is to make sure that the people that are staffing these contracts have the appropriate educational and skill set that they're supposed to, that they are in the correct labor category, because otherwise that's billing fraud. And so HR, I just want to continue to impress, because I think a lot of times when you look at the list, it looks like, oh, that's the CFO, that's going to be our outsourced accounting group. HR has their hands full on this one.
Well, you've actually raised a really interesting point, because not only could this give rise to issues relative to the Justice Department, the U.S. Attorney's Office, at a minimum, it could also give rise to questions incoming from DOL, because if you have someone who's a med tech classified as a med tech 3, but they should have been classified as a med tech 2, then you have a DOL issue going on, and then they're going to be go ahead and looking at these kinds of classification issues.
Yeah, it will sort of spiral. In other words, there's not just one thing. Oh,
it's dropping a pebble in a pond.
Yes. And these agencies are going to be cooperating.
Yeah.
And we have a question that just came in from the audience. We maybe touched on this a little bit, but I want to make sure I ask it is, we're an 8A who is a mentor-protege relationship with a larger prime, with a JV. Do we have to produce records under the JV agreement?
Yeah, so I mean, if you're the protege, you're an 8A, you absolutely still have to produce those. It's not as though, because you're part of this joint venture agreement with a prime that's no longer an 8A, that sort of absolves it. No, because that mentor-protege relies on the protege's status as an 8A, as a member of the 8A program, you do have to provide that information. Because, again, they want to make sure, they know sometimes these joint venture agreements are used as a way to circumvent the process. They want to make sure there's all different types of work share. So for many of them, it's 40%. Is that protege doing 40% of the work? And they want to make sure that that's the case.
And that could really implicate, of course, the large businesses, the mentor, protege, small, large business. Everybody's really going to get snared into this because it's reflective of all of the work share, and then the government will be able to foot it back to the regs and see whether or not they call it outside the lines.
Yeah,
So-
mentor-protege agreements have to be approved by the SBA, and if they find that this was not done properly, whether in its formation or in its implementation, they can just cancel the mentor protege, and then by definition, the larger non-8A is out of work too.
Yeah, exactly.
So we've made it very clear here in the early parts of this. This is not an insignificant lift.
Yeah.
This is not just an administrative request.
No, it's enforcement.
This is enforcement. So, Seth, what are the repercussions if you fail to respond in full by Monday? What's the potential impact?
Yeah, so from a general standpoint, under the FAR, you have an obligation to operate as a responsive and a responsible contractor. If you don't meet basic deadlines, and obviously you're putting yourself at risk of being in default for those basic qualifications to be able to perform government contracts work. With that as a backdrop, there are elements of risk with regard to suspension, debarment, things like that. In the short term, in the long term, if and when you comply and you submit information and it's inconsistent or it raises concerns, then in the long term, it could create issues under the False Claims Act, which also has, can potentially have very, very significant implications. So it's important to not only comply, but it's important to align the information and review it with your professional consultants before you submit it, because the more that you smooth it out, you don't want to take different kinds of diamonds but then just submit it in a paper bag. You want to make sure that it's correctly aligned in order to be able to not have this become a tripwire and become problems down the road.
We did not have our session in December. Mm-hmm. Probably this may have been our topic if we did, knowing it came out. I hate to say it's January 15th.
Yeah.
It's the earliest Thursday we could have.
Yeah,
right.
You can blame us. Joe Young would be the person I would put down.
But in
since he's our
email
moderator.
in the event, I hope that all of our 8As, obviously, that are potential to call, this is something they've been heads down in. But, Declan, any advice, between now and money, other things that they should be focused on if this isn't completed and submitted already?
Yeah, this is not just a situation where you say, hey, send me all the employment agreements. Hey, send me our bank statements and stuff. You should be reviewing this stuff ahead of time. And I know I said easier said than done here, because you really only have a couple of days before you do so. You still should do it, because you really need to know where your weak spots are. This is not a situation where you're uploading this stuff and then you just go on your merry way. They're going to be looking at this stuff. Yeah. They're going to be coming back to you, asking questions after questions after questions. You better know what went out the door. You better know what was uploaded. I think you mentioned earlier you should file early, because what I'm hearing and what you're seeing is that this computer system, keep in mind, what did we say, 4,300 8As. If they all do it on Monday, MLK Day, nobody's working that day, and so no one's troubleshooting.
I think I saw online somebody described the system as held together with chicken wire and popsicle sticks. So don't wait till Monday on the holiday.
No. It's like trying to shove gushing water through a tiny pipe. Yeah. It's not even going to work, frankly.
No. And then the question is, if you're not able to do it on Monday, do you get dinged for that?
Right.
Don't leave anything blank. There's 13 different categories.
Yes.
Don't leave it blank. If you don't have documents, put an explanation in there. If you just think, and don't put NA either. Right. Put a better, because what you're trying to do is you're trying not to set yourself apart, make yourself an easy target for follow-up. You want to be as comprehensive as possible. I'd also say, maybe a shameless plug, but I'd also say work with government contracts, experienced government contracts attorneys. Why do I say that? One, you better be preserving attorney-client privilege. If you have weaknesses, if you have gaps, if you have what you think are
Potential
possibly
liability.
potential liability.
Yeah.
You need to be able to have frank conversations without those then having to be uploaded and discoverable by the SBA.
That's such a great point, and I think that if you want to set up calls with counsel to even get those going, to have questions, it would even be as simple but as important as CCing legal counsel in the email to try to set up the call, to enshroud it with privilege so that you can put things in there and talk about what you want to talk about in a manner that's going to be protected and not going to be subject to disclosure later. I mean, the worst thing that happens is you have to just think about maybe putting together a privilege log. But yeah, that's a great point.
I know our team has been working with our clients, talking these things through. You know, you can't focus on it enough. I know we're coming out of DOGE, we're coming out of shutdowns. You know, most government contractors just wish they could get back to business as usual and doing good work for the country and everything. But this is yet again another distraction that takes away from that.
Exactly.
You know, and with the assumption that we said this is an action that should be assumed, hey, I'm making submission. It's like, oh, okay, I checked the box.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
We hope that everybody, is not getting the follow-up phone call. But Seth, what are the things after Monday that are, the listeners and the 8A
Sure.
should be doing to prepare for, I don't want to say the inevitability, but for the reality that call could be coming?
So the first thing I would do is I would, within the organization, set up an administrative POC, an administrative point of contact, to make sure, again, that the company's speaking through one voice. I would let the managers know that if they receive an inquiry, a phone call, a request for additional information, even a subpoena, that of course they need to let senior management know, but they need to coordinate through the point of contact, not because we're trying to impede federal compliance with a federal investigation, which has its own white-collar flavors to it, but the company is entitled to be able to speak through one voice. So as long as you manage that correctly, I think that having that set up administratively is important. You also want to prepare, to the extent that's necessary, putting together a corrective action plan so that you can address things timely. If there's going to be good faith mistakes, and as long as you are prepared and you have your team prepared and deployed to be able to address that, and you have a corrective action plan ready, I think that'll be helpful. But frankly, also, even though they may hopefully just be on standby but not have to do anything, tell your CPA firm and tell your law firm, give them the update. This is where we are. This is what we did. Anoint everything through the attorney-client privilege that Declan talked about, but just have the team ready to go, because when things come over the transom, you want to be prepared so that you can respond cleanly and effectively.
Yeah, think about the SBA's Office of General Counsel getting this information, and listen, most people, as Seth just said, you're going to have issues. No company operates so perfectly, everything dotted I's, crossed T's, so there's going to be issues. I believe the best approach is to show that if there are problems, that you actually care, that you actually, want to do better in these corrective action plans. If the SBA comes back to you, you could say, you know what? As part of this process, we actually recognize this. We recognize that there was an issue with one of our work shares. It might have been 38%. We knew we couldn't get it to 40%. Here's what we did. We immediately shifted some employees over, and we got up to 42% because we wanted to overcompensate for that.
Right.
Is there a technical violation? Yeah. But I mean, if you're thinking about it, and if you're the SBA, which is already short-staffed, I think they're going to move on and say, you know what, this is a company that cares. They're trying to do the right thing. Mm-hmm. Not everybody's perfect about it. Mm-hmm. This is an area where proactiveness versus just kind of like burying your head in the sand, proactiveness is going to be rewarded.
And in highlighting, well, maybe the word isn't highlighting, but being prepared to address problems and issues, because we've represented clients in situations where they have colored a little bit outside the lines. But if you recognize it and you present it immediately with a corrective action plan, and then you just step up and you own it, that goes a really long way when you're dealing with government investigators.
Yeah, and I know we just have a few minutes. I was just going to touch on one more thing,
Sure.
which is we see so much merger and acquisition activity going on, M&A activity going on in the GovCon space. And anybody who's ever gone through that, that due diligence is a critical component of that. Let's just say you're a larger company trying to buy an 8A company. You're gonna lift up the hood. You want to know everything. This is just one more factor for companies to take into account. Okay, we might be taking on potential SBA, civil, and/or potentially worse liability.
Yes.
And so it's just one more factor that goes into that M&A process.
And I would tag along that briefly and say that when you are if you're an 8A, if you're a small business and you want to head into that environment, get your data room set up and ready to go and be able to walk them through and show the potential acquirer in the due diligence process that when they lift up the hood that everything is sparkly clean, because that at a minimum could affect price, even aside from all the interest rate environment issues that are going on in the M&A space right now.
Yeah, and a last question that came in here we'll address is somebody asked, is every 8A getting a notice? And I think you mentioned every 8A is supposed to get a notice.
The short answer is
the lack
yes.
of receiving a
They
notice
should have already received it.
They should have already gotten it.
received it. If you did not receive it, that doesn't mean you're not obligated, correct?
That you're not subject to it. Yeah, absolutely.
You might have mistaken it for a holiday card in December.
Happy holidays.
From the SBA.
From the
From your
SBA.
friends at the SBA.
cancel holiday plans.
Right.
But all jokes aside, yeah, you should have gotten one. And I think, Seth, you touched on this before. Just because you might not have seen that come in. I mean, because keep in mind, companies nowadays, a lot of them are operating fully remote. Like there is no, there's not always a headquarters where the mail room is
That's a great
staffed
point.
and stuff.
Yeah.
So there's actually, if you go on to SBA's website, there's actually under frequently asked questions. They say, if you didn't get one and you are in the 8A program currently, you should have gotten one. Reach out to this contact information, and they will figure out where it went, because chances are it went out but went to the wrong person.
And
Is
maybe
there information on the 8A site for people to get everything that was in that notice to start acting on it without having to get the actual notice sent
Yes,
to them?
there is. Absolutely. That's
Okay.
a great point, Joe. And how to upload it,
Yeah.
and instructions on how to upload it, things of that nature. But yes, there is like the model letter with the 13 categories.
I think the Office of General Counsel at SBA would say, whether you got it or not, and I'm going to say this is very unfair, and I don't agree with it, but the Office of General Counsel would say, you're on notice.
Yeah.
Even if you didn't get a letter, you're on notice.
Yeah.
And that's pretty draconian, but unfortunately, I think that's the position they're going to take.
Yeah, I think it's a real mistake to ignore this and not respond by Monday, even if you do the best you can. Again, try not to leave any blanks. Try to provide explanations for missing information, but I think it's a real mistake to do so. I think you're playing with fire a bit.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think
well,
we've got one final point
obviously
here.
we really hope that this isn't a surprise to anybody that was on the call today, because it really doesn't leave a lot of time to respond. But
Yes.
if so, obviously, please listen to the great advice here from Seth and Declan. Get acting on that. I'm sorry I look distracted. Our great team here is trying to give us, I think, maybe another question that's
or a
coming
point
in
to
here.
emphasize. Mentioning that we'll also be getting this in recording out within a couple of
within a
hours,
couple
and
hours
certainly
before
before the
Monday.
Monday deadline. So if you'd like to circulate within your organization, if you'd like to go through it and follow up with any questions, this will be available in recorded format. So you'll be able to pick up and listen to any aspects of this that you'd like to follow up.
And we're really hoping one of these days when we get in here to talk about good news.
Yeah, we've got to come up with a fun topic
Next
for
month,
February.
I just want to be able to announce record levels of IDIQs and all kinds of
Yes.
great contracting
Yes.
opportunities.
Something about growth.
yeah,
We need a growth-focused
exactly.
topic.
Yes.
We're
How
not
to-
always this down, you know?
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, and then one more question, then we'll log off. Who should they reach out to? You know what? I don't have that contact information right here, but if you go on SBA's website, or if you just want to reach out to me, I'll get you that too. It's dleonard@berenzweiglaw.com. It just flows off your tongue. But anyways,
Declan can give you an extension of the filing deadline.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
It's like I'm back in high school. I always.
Well, gentlemen, always a pleasure. To our listeners, thanks for being with us. Again, hope this was helpful. yes, we do look forward to hopefully having a more positive topic for us to cover in February. But until then, thank you so much for being with us, and we look forward to seeing you next month. Take care.